Oh, that's
Had
insane.
enough. I said, we've had enough.
Oh,
It's been a,
yeah, it'll take the rest of it away.
all right. Sorry, I don't have my phone in front of me. I try to keep track of time.
I was supposed to give that back to Deb.
All right, it looks like it's 5 o'clock. We'll call our meeting to order. I know Deanne's going to be joining us shortly. Okay.
Arnie,
Here.
Loughlin,
Here.
McKellar,
Present.
Toft, here, Trotter, Williams,
Here.
and Zeta.
Here. All right, let's go ahead and stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. All right. So next on our agenda is approval, amendment of the agenda.
I'll make that motion to approve the agenda, and
Okay.
I guess the minutes are part of it, right?
Yeah,
Minutes will be part of 6A.
Oh, okay.
okay, I see the minutes there, okay. So is there a second? Yep.
Second.
Okay. Those approve?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
All right, those pass. All right, next is on our agenda is an open forum. So those that would like to come speak to the park board are welcome to come to the mic and do so.
Do we state our address and everything like council? Okay. My name is Tracy Curtin. I'm at 31709 Greensea Drive. I guess I just want to briefly touch on the disc golf expansion. We are adjacent to that property, and I know that we are kind of charged with bringing forward new ideas, maybe more formally at the next meeting, but I just wanted to introduce myself today. We live on Greensea Drive. We're a family of 5, 2 older boys and our little girl here. I have been doing my best to talk to individuals around my neighborhood. If I see someone outside, I'm doing my best to engage with my neighbors and community members, just discussing, different things that they like about the community, what they maybe feel is missing as far as recreational activities and amenities, and obviously brainstorming, because I think that it is an important thing. I also want to note that I just spoke with a woman outside at the park and her 2 kids, and kind of just ran this idea by her, letting her know that she also lives in the White Birch area, that there is a potential for a different park amenity in that area, and what her thoughts and opinions were. And I think I get a lot of positive feedback about nature parks, nature walks, and different things. However, like I said, I can formally bring forward some information next meeting. But I did want to come up here and ask if there is any information or statistics or things that the park board would specifically like to see presented, so that I can come well prepared next meeting for everybody. I will say that I have read the 2020, I can't remember exactly the name of it now off the top of my head. I think it's like the comprehensive plan. And I was noticing, some of the data and statistics that were in there. And obviously noting that we do have a growing number of families and residents out in that White Birch area. However, all of the park amenities are more located on this side of town across this county road. We do have a lot of families on our specific circle, Blue Ridge, down Wide Overlook, and up Greenstein Drive, a lot of families. And obviously, with kids, we really enjoy seeing them get outside and use their imagination. And so my vision, I guess, for that space and even potentially the parking lot is to just, over time, create a space where kids are getting outside and using their imagination. I spoke to some retired neighbors of mine, and they also noted that, you know, up in that area for their age, they would like to see an area where they're not walking on the street, that they would have access to a place where they feel like they can get their exercise in, that they're also outside enjoying nature and feeling safe off of the road, because we don't have any shoulders or walkways on the side of our roads as well. So yeah, I just kind of want to make a point that I really am sincere about presenting you with something. I am trying to poll our neighbors and beyond our neighbors, you know, people living outside of that White Birch addition, but I do know that a lot of families feed into that area. I think what we end up looking for when we move into an area, when I moved to Portland, Oregon, prior to living here, I specifically looked at what parks were walkable distance, you know, what amenities were available to me and my family to walk to. Because it is harder to gather your kids and say, hop in the car, let's go somewhere else, and then enjoy our time. You know, if families can walk to a neutral place as well, I think it's a huge community builder. I meet today, I even met someone, the one other individual on the park as I was doing laps. I meet so many people on neutral ground, and that builds community because we can talk about, hey, did you hear this thing was happening in town? Did you know this event is happening maybe in our neighboring town? Like maybe, you know, you learn so much about your local community, and you learn about events happening around your community, and that just brings families out to participate even more. And so I think the biggest thing is, for me, is not even just focusing on families. However, I do know that families will appreciate an amenity in that area where we can walk, where we can join on neutral ground. Our school district is great. Our school district is big, so a lot of times my kids have friends right in Breezy Point, but I still haven't met their parents. So how great would it be to meet those families, you know, at a park, you know, and be able to meet that parent face to face and say, oh, you know, my kid talks about your kid all the time. You know, it's really nice to meet you. They're a really great kid. I'm glad to know that we're neighbors. So I guess with that, that was kind of a long spiel, but to say, if there is anything that I can bring forward, please let me know so that I can be well prepared to offer you the information you're looking for, if anybody has any input for me. So.
Thank you, Tracy, for sharing.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. We look forward, hopefully you can join us at that May 11th meeting as well. So, thank
Can
you.
I add, we're supposed to be tasked, I thought, with looking at some other uses for the disc golf expansion need. I don't see it on the agenda. Is it part of the new business we're going to be discussing later?
Yeah.
Mr. Toth, the council director, that'd be at the May 11th meeting, so.
Well, but we have to prepare to come up with ideas, so if we know about it now, that gives us another 30 days to prepare.
And I'll discuss that, I also was going to be planning on discussing it in my staff updates a little bit, just kind of to prep of what the council has tasked you with.
Okay.
Maybe while I'm here, David, is there an email that I can send out to the parks? Do they have an email address with the city, just so I could send an email out if they do have anything they want?
You can also, if you send it to me, I can share it with them.
Oh, yes,
Have
okay.
with your information.
So if okay, I will go ahead and do that. I will send David an email so that you guys can reach out if there's anything you're looking for.
Thank you, Tracy.
On our part.
Thank you, Tracy. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else?
Afternoon, Tim Olson, 31908 Blue Ridge Drive. The Curtins are my neighbors. So I'll echo some of Tracy's sentiments. I won't be up here too terribly long. I guess I would also like to know from you folks and you, Mr. Chansky, what we as residents that are directly impacted by this expansion, what we can do to provide you ideas and solutions. I'm not 100% sure on the timeline, but I believe we have between now and June for this to be decided. And that's very little time, so we have next month's meeting. I guess that I expected to see this on the agenda at this meeting, and I'm wondering, will it be at the next meeting, and what can we do to prepare to present solutions to you folks? So that's a question that I understand won't be answered tonight, but if it can be, Mr. Chansky, if we can, the public can get some feedback, we would appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. All right. Is there anybody else that would to in the open forum? All right. Yes, we will move on to item 6 on our agenda with new business.
Now I'll vote to approve the minutes, make my motion.
So the meeting minutes from March 9th
Yeah.
for our regular
I
meeting.
have a point of order on that. Since it was brought up at the council meeting, mine and I think it was Diane's vote, we abstained from voting, not opposed, like it said in the minutes. I would like that changed to what we actually voted on. We said abstained, which is different than opposed. Okay? Thank you.
So you made it amendment, you amended?
a
or
amendment.
That's an amendment?
Do you accept that?
Yes,
amendment, Diane?
I do.
Okay.
Then, Mr. Topper, you seconding the motion?
I'll second that, yes,
With the amendment.
With the amendment.
the amendment.
Motion with amendment.
Do we have discussion?
No.
Yeah, now it's
Yeah.
time for discussion. Yeah.
I was told that that is not a possibility. So I need to know for Robert's rules, if you can abstain or if you can,
We'll just talk about the next item.
Okay,
We
but-
did allow the,
it's confusing.
we can talk about that'll be part of my next discussion on the next item. But as it was allowed at the last meeting, like, that is what happened. So the minutes are what did allow, so
Okay.
we're not gonna change.
What happened in the past or
Got it.
It
documented.
is what happened.
That makes
So we
sense.
are gonna put in the
Okay.
this is what happened.
But we're going to be clarifying
But it
things for
wasn't really
moving
allowed.
forward.
Okay. It was improper. Okay.
Any other comments or anything? All right. Those in, do I need to do a vote on this one?
But you still need a vote, so.
Oh, those in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Item 6B.
I'm gonna make my way up here where there's an actual microphone. FYI, microphones are something we're working on, so we have enough mics for everybody. Okay, so, Madam Chair, members of the committee, at the last meeting, which I do apologize I was not able to attend after coming down with some illness. Well, I know there was some discussion, and we as staff received some feedback, and members of the council received some feedback, that the committee would like, maybe take a step back and discuss kind of what is the committee's roles, responsibilities, how does the committee operate as we move forward, and the committee, especially as there are new members, we have a larger committee, and some of the upcoming things that the committee is going to be addressing. So in your packet, I just put a memo. I'm just going to walk through it very highly. I'm not going to read it off. But I do want to walk through it. The purpose of this item is really there's no action that needs to be taken in this item. This is informative. I want to kind of walk you through it. I want you to be able to maybe have some discussion amongst yourselves and be able the opportunity to ask me some questions. And if there's anything that you want clarification of, we can take it back and bring it back to you at another meeting, or maybe just provide it offline as well to you. So that's what this item is purpose. So first of all, I just wanted to talk about the role of the Park and Recreation Committee as the city ordinance discusses it. So section 33.35 of the code, that established the Park and Recreation Committee. Subpart E of that outlines the purpose and the duties. Again, let's read that part. You know, the purpose of the committee is to review and to make recommendations to the council on development and organization of the city parks, trails, and recreation programs. And the duty is to prepare, hold hearings on, and recommend to the city council the plans, programs, and policies as is deemed necessary to carry out the purposes of this section. And then there lists a bunch of different powers that the committee has to do that work. As you will see, a lot of it is advisory, because that's really what it comes down to, is you are the council's chief advisors when it comes to parks, recreation, open space, trails. The council is looking at you to give them guidance. A lot of the times that comes, talks about in here at the direction of the council. Council will say, Parks and Recreation Committee, please consider this item. For example, what we're going to talk about with disc golf. Next week or next month, at the end of this meeting, we will have a discussion on what that's going to look like and what you as a committee would like to see for that month, for that meeting, as we prepare to do communications in the next few weeks about that as well. So then the public knows what to expect. So, that's really what it comes down to, is you help the council decide what needs to be done when it comes to parks, trails, open space. Additionally, there was some discussion about a task force last meeting when it comes to the signage. I didn't want to put it in here, that the committee does have the ability to create other committees or subcommittees to address issues or discuss more in-depth things that you were addressing. However, it has to be of the membership. So unless otherwise empowered by the city council, the committee doesn't have the authority to create other community committees. So if you want to create another community committee, it needs to be made as a recommendation to the council for them to give you the authority to do that. Otherwise, if you want to create a committee of only 3 of you, of up to 3 of you, because that's not a quorum, you want to keep subcommittees of less than a quorum of the board, you can do that all day. So that's what I know on committees. The one thing that the ordinance says that you actually, it's kind of interesting, it says all the things you can do. The one thing it says you don't get to do is that you don't have the authority of a park committee as defined by state statute. So in state statute, it actually talks about, I think it's section 421, if I'm correct. It actually talks about there is a statutory park committee. If you create a park committee under that statute, they have all these authorities. And that includes like buying land, leasing land, employing personnel, entering into contracts and leases. So again, as this committee is designed as advisory, the ordinance says you don't get to do that. If you want to do that stuff, you have to ask the council. So again, your job is advisory. When it comes to really what governs, in government, we do a lot of plans, we do documentation, we have ordinances that govern our structure and how we operate. The park committee has the same thing. There are really 4 main documents. One being obviously the city code itself. You only can operate within what the city code says you can operate. And then the other 3 are more guiding, and those are the comprehensive plan, the parks and master plan, the park capital improvement plan. Our next item is a little more in depth of those items, so I'm not going to go into depth now about those. But those are kind of your 4 main things are what guide you outside of other direction from, the city council, are the city code, the comprehensive plan, the parks master plan, and then the capital improvement plan. Meeting procedures. So the statute, or say the ordinance, when it comes to the Parks and Recreation Committee, gives the committee, and Daniel, if you want to scroll down a little bit to that section, there we go, follow me a little bit, keep going, there we go. It says that the committee shall be governed and operate by rules adopted by the committee. So you are self-governing. You can operate how you choose to operate, and you may adopt additional rules and procedures as necessary for orderly conduct of business. We have not found any documentation that would indicate, unless, Diane or Deanne or Megan, you've been around the longest, want to show me that there was one. I haven't found one. I can be told I'm wrong. That you have adopted something that says you have adopted bylaws or anything that suggests that it says this is how we operate. I will say bylaws are not a bad thing to have, and maybe something the committee wants to discuss in the future of here's how we're operating, here's we conduct our business. What I did attach to the memo is a synopsis of Robert's Rules of Order. So that is the most common parliamentary procedure that is used. It's not the only thing out there. I think when I worked with the city of Brainerd, they used Atwood's, but Robert's Rules is the most common used. Robert's Rules, by the most part, is a guideline. So it's not a legal binding documentation or procedure where if you don't follow the procedure 100%, actions are revoked or no. That's not how it works. If the city got, sued, be saying, well, you didn't follow Robert's Rules over exactly, your motion is null and void. More than likely, a court would say, no, the motion stands. City of Breezy Point, you might want to get your procedures in order, but it does not nullify things unless it's maybe adopted by ordinance saying we will follow these things. The city, for the Parks and Recreation Committee, has not formally adopted any type of parliamentary procedure. So, but I provided just a synopsis. Robert's Rules of Order, if you ever want to read it, it's actually a book that's about this thick. And it covers everything, and it's really designed for, again, parliament, state, legislatures, not committees. So in here, again, these are guidelines. You don't have to operate exactly to how it says. In here it talks about on page 19 of your document, if you want to move, second, or speak to a motion, stand and address the chair. We're not going to require you to stand unless you all want to do that. Those are things. If you have a motion, but then classic things, if you approve of the motion, vote for it. If you disapprove of the motion, vote against it. If you want to change it, ask it to be amended. General guidelines, especially on 19, that's the general guidelines. And that's how we move forward. On page 18, motion, postpone, definitely, amend, commit, question, table, adjourn. That's generally the things that the basic elements of any kind of meeting or any kind of parliamentary procedure. On the following 4 pages is a lot of, or say 2 pages, pages 20 and 21, there's this kind of saying, okay, here are some different actions that can take place and how could they be done? How do you adjourn a meeting? I move to adjourn, and this is how it would go. As a committee, you operate by majority. So when we are acting, the committee should be making motions to take formal action. We don't operate by consensus. So the committee wants to do something, there needs to be a motion. There should be a second to that motion, discussion, and then the motion voted on. And it's the motion, it's either yay is for the motion, obviously no is against the motion, and whichever side has the majority is what happens. So if a majority, so if 4 or more of you vote for the motion, that's the action that's taking place. If 4 or more vote against the motion, that motion dies. And we don't move forward with that direction. So again, all of it is taken, you act as a body, not as individuals. So again, when we come from staff, when we're looking for direction, we're really going to be looking for motions from you. Provide us with direction, provide a motion, and vote. And then that is our marching orders. Without the direction, we kind of really don't know exactly what to do because the council or the committee didn't take a formal action. Also, motions are what we put, for the most part, that's what we put in minutes. We put the actions. What did you do? The minutes aren't a dictation of the meeting. So that's kind of the procedures. Agenda development, this is obviously another common question I get. So how agendas are made are generally developed by staff. So that's kind of what we are tasked with. Based on our prior direction from the committee, you've said bring X thing back, or we want to see X item in the agenda. Again, you did that through a formal direction. Or the city council. Obviously, the city council can direct things for you to work on, as well as staff's knowledge of issues, topics, questions, et cetera, that need to be addressed. So if we've been working on something and issues come up to our direction, we might bring that to the committee and say, hey, this issue's come up. We could really use some direction from you as to what you want to do about it. So we may also put items on the agenda based off of the knowledge we have. As you did earlier this meeting, you always, at the end of the day, you as a body have authority over the agenda. So that's why we put the approval of the agenda on there. So if there's anything as individual members you want to see added to the agenda or removed from the agenda, you can make the motion to add or remove something to the agenda when the agenda is approved. Again, it does take a majority of the committee to act on that motion. There are times too also where that piece comes important of there may be times that we actually as staff ask for an item to be added or removed. A time that we might ask an item to be added if it's something that's pressing. Something came up after the agenda was published and we really need some direction on it, we'll add it. I'm never gonna add, I can tell you, I will never add an item on the agenda the day of unless I think it's absolutely pressing. If it's just a normal discussion item, it's gonna be on the agenda when it's published. Because we want you to get time to consider it, we want the public to also be aware that it's being discussed. If we're asking you to remove an item from agenda, more than likely that is because new information has come up since we published it, and we want some more time to, maybe it's probably significant information, and we want some more time to digest it before having the committee discuss that item, because it might alter our recommendation or what the committee might discuss. So that'll be a time that we would probably, the one time we'd ask you to remove something. Mr. Toft?
If something's on the agenda, shouldn't it be voted on? Or can it doesn't have to be tabled officially? You can't just ignore it, can you?
As in like at the approval, so if the,
If something's on the agenda, shouldn't there be a vote on it?
only if there's an action item to it. Not every item has an action to it.
If there is an action item to it, should it be voted on?
Yes, unless it's removed from the agenda.
Okay, so if it wasn't removed from the agenda and it was an action item and it was just ignored, what's that called then?
So we would, so
Point of
generally
information?
speaking, if you stepped over an item that was an action item, I'm gonna call you back to it and be like, we missed X, Y, or Z, because if there's an action in there, again, I will put what our recommended action is.
I'll
and I
talk to
will-
you afterwards.
Okay,
I don't want to waste this committee's
yeah,
time on that.
okay.
Well, there has to be a second too, so if there is.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I think Mr. Toft's saying if an action
Oh.
wasn't taken.
But can't they just be laid aside? Something we just say, we're going to lay it aside to an indefinite time?
At that point, that's where that's where from a staff's perspective and just for a clarity's perspective, we would want a motion, still an act to be taken of, we're motioning to table this item
Or lay it
until a later date or
indefinitely.
identify the date, yeah. So in that situation, again, if you want to table an item, we would again request a formal action, to Mr. Toft's point, to table that item, not just, again, we want to avoid consensus, and actually have actions taken, formal actions
May I
taken.
ask a question too? In regards to the council meeting where Councilman Maroney thought he needed to recuse himself, which I did not think was necessary. He did not have a vested interest in it. But here in ours, it says, no person shall be appointed with private or personal interest likely to conflict with the general public interest. How is that determined?
I think that's based on, at the end of the day, how is that determined? By that person who's being recommended for appointment probably divulging it. Otherwise, we really won't know. At the end of the day, appointments, they are determined, they are made. I guess I didn't put that in here, how you are appointed. Obviously, there are terms to the board. So I'm just going to go on a little diatribe quickly on that to answer your question. Everyone serves a 3-year term. Appointments are recommended by the mayor, approved by the city council. So really, it would kind of have to be the mayor, the council, or their staff, and honestly, staff generally, when it comes to appointments, those are, made by the elected officials. We generally stay out of them. They would have to be known, and if they're not known, they're not known. The only way, the council does have the authority to remove committee members. It has to be done by a 2/3 vote, and at a meeting. And the person, if the council is voting to remove a committee member, that committee member, per the city code, has the right to essentially request or demand a hearing as to, give testimony and ask, like, why are you trying to remove me?
Request that.
So due process is in the code, should the council try to remove a committee member. So public due process. So yeah, so again, it's gonna have to be just personal divulging and personal knowledge.
Yeah.
Other ways with the agenda. If a committee member would like a specific item on the agenda, what we do request is the information be provided to staff. In this situation, it could be myself, Daniel, or Deb, or multiple of us. Copying multiple of us is never a bad thing. We keep each other accountable and that we don't drop some balls. That can happen sometimes. We don't try to. But if you can reach out to any of us as well as the chair. So the committee chair is also aware of it. We request at least a week prior. One, we can just review it, make sure everything's there, and then we can make sure it gets in the packet. Again, our goal is to be getting the packet out to you the week before. So that's one reason we've got a week prior, is you meet on Thursdays, so if you get to the Thursday before, we can ensure that we can get that in the packet. Again, we as staff, we operate by formal direction. So if you as a committee member would like something on it, send it to us. We'll get it on the agenda. But with that being said, whatever you want on the agenda, you need to provide to us, because we aren't going to start diving down individual rabbit holes without the committee's, as a body, direction to do so. So if you want something on the agenda, you want some information, you want to discuss a topic, our request is you provide us with the information that you would want the committee to know, and then that item essentially is going to be yours to lead. So, you know, if Sandra, if you gave us an item you want to discuss, we would put it in there, and then at that item, the chair would pretty much turn it over to you to say, no, what was it you want the committee to consider? So that's the committee bringing up an item. So that's agenda development. Also, I'll do this from members of the public as well. Generally speaking, we recommend items from the public get put on the agenda is to use the open forum process, is to come forward, bring a concern before the committee, and then have the committee say, you know what, again, we try to recommend not discussing at the meeting, because again, we haven't noticed that issue is going to be discussed, we haven't had the time to look at it, would be have the committee saying, you know, we actually do want to look at that, having a motion to direct staff to bring that at the next agenda. So that's generally how we recommend the public have items placed on the agenda, is to use the open forum process and request, and then have the committee then direct staff to bring it on the next agenda. So that way it is formally noticed, it's on the agenda, the public knows that you're going to be discussing it, and we have some time to potentially do some background work with the member of the public and figure out what is it they want to discuss and make sure we have that in the packet for you as well. So the last thing in here is a little about operations. The city, while we have a Parks and Recreation committee, while we have a Parks and Recreation line item in our budget, we do not have a Parks department. Parks is kind of done through across the city, kind of break it down. At the end of the day, Public Works, they're the ones that do our general maintenance on our park system. Administration, we're here to provide you with administrative and policy support. And the police department obviously helps with the enforcement of the city ordinances within the parks. As for a budget, I did attach the 2023 budget. You have the whole budget. And I think the parks budget is on, give me a second, I can tell you what page it is. The Parks Inc. is
Page starts on 24, I think.
Page
Or wait, sorry.
34. Page 34 is your Parks and Recreation budget. For 2024, 2023, I'm sorry, you do have a total budget of $36,750. When you really break that down though, operating, it comes to about $12,000. You got $10,000, $20,000 are transfers, like for capital outlay, transfer to other, that's a $10,000 that we send to the capital fund every year for savings for future projects. The capital outlay, $10,000, that is in case you want to do a special project. And then pretty much everything else is, about $12,000 is the actual operations, mowing lawns, maintaining things. So your budget's not huge. And what I want to speak to that is that's really has been a policy decision by the city council and the community. That, in years past, parks has just not been as big of a priority. And when items would want to be done, the committee would just go to the council, and the council will consider it and, allocate funds accordingly. You do look at other communities our size, Nisswa, Cross Lake, they have more robust parks systems. They also have very much more robust parks budgets. With both Nisswa and and Cross Lake, both, I think Nisswa's is a little over $500,000 and Cross Lakes is a little over $750,000. They have dedicated staff members. That's a decision that that council and that committee and that community has made, that they want to invest that into the budget. That being said, that doesn't mean we have to stay this way. At the end of the day, it's kind of, again, the council is looking to you as a committee is to advise them on parks. And if you think we need to be spending more money on parks, then I think the goal of your charge is to, poll the public, discuss what does spending more money look like? What does that mean? And then making that pitch to the city council. Mr. Toft.
Yes. For us to make good decisions, it's nice to have the total picture of what it actually is costing. I looked at Mr. Zierden's forecast, what he would be mowing if the disc golf expansion goes through. It's 240 hours. He's using a tractor that's going to burn 5 to 8 gallons an hour. And he's got to use grade 91 or 92. That's almost $9,000 right there. There's no labor cost factored into that as well. So if we're advising the council on making decisions, and we're not giving what it actually costs the taxpayer, is there any way to rectify that?
Yeah, and thank you for making that comment. This budget obviously was my first budget when I came to the city, and so we kind of went back with the format. It's really, at the end of the day, it really comes down to how you want to allocate things. We 100%, if the committee wanted to make the recommendation of the city council that says in the 2024 budget, we recommend, right now, because what the city council has just determined is Parks, Public Works does the maintenance, so we just kind of put in the lump sum. It doesn't have to be that way. If you want to recommend to the council that, for 2024, we really would like to see the operating cost from the Public Works Department, the labor, that stuff pulled out, and pull that out of Public Works and put it into Parks, we absolutely can do that. Again, that's just an accounting, figuring out, we'll have to spend some time to figure out what an accurate number could be, because we don't, right now, they don't track their time to Parks, but we can do that, and I would just, again, that'd be a great recommendation to make to the city council when we get to budget season. Thank you. So that's kind of your budget. At the end of the day, it comes down to, again, you as a committee deciding what, again, is the future of the parks, what do you want to see, and then making recommendations to the city council. So, I think that's all I really had on this item. So with that, I guess I'll take any other questions,
I do.
comments?
Yeah.
Gail?
Yeah.
Yes. So you said that we put 20K in transfers to the capital fund for
So
future
10K goes in, 10,000 that transfer to other goes into the capital fund, the 401 fund.
10K.
So, so if you were to go to, and I'll pull it up really here because I know the 401 fund is in here, is page, give me a second, page 46. Oh, that's 401, 40. Okay, this one doesn't. Yeah, oh, sorry, actually not page 46, page 44. That's the revenues. So if you go to page 44 of your packet, thank you, Daniel. These are the revenues for the 401 fund, and if you go to the very last item of that line, it's account number 45100-39201. That's the transfer in from the general fund to the capital fund. A little bit about this, and I'm just going to go on a little bit, very short diatribe to help people understand this. Local government, we operate what we call fund accounting. Okay, so it's a little different than a lot of times the general public general business operates, but we all do fund accounting. That means we have different funds, where the money is allocated different ways. So you have your general fund, that's where like general operating, when we levy, the tax levy, that is for the general fund. That's what we're tax levying. So in here, the city has multiple funds, that's all been provided for you in that budget document. You have your general fund, you have your cemetery fund, that's the money that funds the cemetery. You have your EDA fund, which is a very small fund. You have your debt fund. If we have debt, currently the city does not have any debt, but that's where the debt is managed, is out of that fund. You have your sewer fund. There's two funds for sewer. We have sewer operating and sewer capital. The sewer fund is what we call an enterprise fund. So that means no tax dollars, revenue dollars go directly into that. It is funded primarily through user fees. So if you are on the city sewer system, that's where your sewer bill is going, is into the sewer fund, the 600 fund. The 601 fund is the capital fund where we put money for future large expenditures.
Expansions.
And then the 800 fund, which is in there, that's kind of a newly created fund. That's where the city was managing its American Rescue Plan Act dollars that the city got in 21 and 22 as part of the American Rescue Plan Act. So that's just, the city created that fund just to manage that fund, those dollars separately, mainly for reporting purposes. We have to report on that. At the end of the day, fund accounting, I will say, it's a shell game. I don't want to say that, make it bad. We have one bank account, okay? It's all one bank account, but this is how the state governments and the federal government have determined that we are to account for our funds. This is, we get audited. We also get audited every single year. Actually, our annual audit is in about a month. Clifton Larson Allen's our audit firm. They come in and they audit everything. So we get audited every single year, and then we have financial, an audit report that the council adopts that gets brought forward about a month or so after the audit takes place. So we get audited on all our funds. Something I do want to share about the budget is I recognize that this budget doesn't tell you a whole lot. I'm not a fan of this budget format. One of the things that's my personal goal is to create a more, I'll call it a pictorial budget. Actually, a little bit about me, my very first jobs in local government when I was in graduate school, I worked for the city of Thornton, Colorado, which is the first ring suburb of Denver, and I worked in the management and budget office. And one of the first tasks they made me do was to create the budget book. They had passed, worked on helping them pass the budget and then create what they call the budget book. And I wish I got out in my car and got it, because that's where it's in the back of my car right now. They had about a $250 million budget. The budget book is this thick. But what it did is you still had all these numbers, but it was broken down by departments. So in Breezy Point, we'd say, like, Public Works would have its own section. We talk about this, what the Public Works Department does. Here's maybe some of the goals for the Public Works Department in 2023. Here are all the FTEs, the positions allotted to the Public Works Department. We notice if there's any additions or subtractions from that in the budget. We'd identify, obviously you'd have their operating budget like that's in here now. But under capital, especially with areas like capital, we'd actually say, they have $150,000 in capital this year. These are those items. $75,000 towards a dump truck, $10,000 toward a sander. We would identify it, so when the public comes forward and all they see is numbers, all they see is you budgeted $636,062 for public work plus that 4. Again, wages are wages. But except when it comes down to those capital items, it really shows this is what we're doing. So that is my goal. My goal is to move towards that, because I think it helps everybody understand what is in the budget and what we're doing.
So basically, the way we're set up here is we really don't have a budget. We just cover annual expenses that we know we have, and then money gets transferred from the general fund for upkeep. And then what we do want to do with projects goes to the council, and they find the money in their budgets.
Well, we do have a budget.
Well, we're allotted a certain amount of general fund.
So you are allotted, so your budget is in the general fund. So what we do as part of the budget process, that really kind of kicks off June, July-ish, is we bring in all the information. We do look at things, so we forecast what our wages going to be next year and all that. But we also do, like, what are the projects? We do look at what are, as I dive in here, and I'm going to jump into, which fund am I in? 100 fund. So I'll use, for example, whoops, I'm not on the wrong page. Let me get an example. I'm going to go into public safety. Sorry, Sergeant Garcia. Public safety, capital outlay in that $90,000, okay?
Page you on?
Page 31. Very bottom of the page, capital outlay, $90,000. What that $90,000 is, and this is what I'm saying pictorial, is that's the annual, so we replace a squad annually. That's the annual squad replacement, and there's some other equipment in that. So we are budgeting that. So we say, okay, we need $90,000 to replace a squad and do some other equipment. Okay, so that is in the budget. The thing is, what I'm getting into is we're not actually telling people that's what that $90,000 is for, and that's what I wanted to do better, is say, here's the $90,000, it's for a squad, it's for the build-out of that squad, which is actually the majority of it, and then, the other thing was that $90,000 was body cameras. That's what that $90,000 is covering. Okay, so we need $90,000 to do that. So that's what the general fund is. So again, when we create the general fund, we're creating, here are all of our anticipated expenditures, including projects. The total expenditures at the very end, okay, at the end, we expect that for 2023, we are going to spend, where did it go? Here we go. For 2023, we expect across all the general fund areas, $3,250,115. So we know we need that much money. What we do is we subtract that from anticipated non-tax revenues. So at the very beginning of it, we go, okay, we know generally we bring in this much permits, in money in permits. We bring in this much in leases. What are all the non-tax revenues we get? And we subtract those two things, total expenditures, non-tax revenues, and then we say, okay, what is the balance? And that's how much we have to tax the residents for. So that's a little bit of budget and taxing 101. So does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, David, are we maybe too conservative as a Parks Committee in the amount of money we're asking council for?
Yes.
I guess that's the question, that's your policy question now, isn't it?
Depends on what it's.
It depends on what you want to do.
I mean, we aspire to a lot. And I don't even have kids here anymore. I don't play basketball. I don't do any of this stuff. But I know that having community activities and recreational opportunities is good for a city.
Yep.
And recognize it costs money, but I can't print it myself. So do you think we should be asking for more, or do we have to have a documented project with a cost that we can, pretty accurately project and say, this is what we need? Or can we just say, hey, we'd like to do more. Can you give us some more money, and we'll peck away at the edges of what we can do?
And I think that's kind of, that's kind of really what you as a committee need to discuss. Because to answer your question, Diane, having a package, especially if you're looking at spending a large amount of money, you want to spend $50,000 on whatever, it would be it's generally good, and I think Councilman Maroney could probably speak to this too if you wanted to, but I won't necessarily put him on the spot, is it helps them make that decision. It helps them justify increasing your budget $50,000. Because again, increasing your budget $50,000, unless we're taking $50,000 somewhere else, that means we are increasing the levy by $50,000, taxes by $50,000. So I know it does help them generally to understand, like, well, what do you want to use it for? But that doesn't mean you can't go to the council and say, okay, here are the things we kind of want to do in broad. Again, and this is where having a master plan and CIP, kind of the next items, are important. So you can say, here are the things. We've discussed these items. We've gotten input from the public. These are the things we want to do. These are the things that are important. Can you help us out? And I guess and then it's up to the council to decide, you tell us the amount you want, we'll budget it. Or maybe the council just goes, you know what, we're gonna give you an extra $40,000 a year, and you figure out how to use it. Ultimately, that's kind of, how do you want to recommend it to council, and what is council willing to give you? So we can go either way, but.
Because I've sat here for 20 years begging for crumbs, literally scraping together money, rounding up volunteers to assemble this playground. And it's been a frustrating thing. And then now we've got a lot more people to help shoulder the burden of the taxes. This might be an opportunity to be a little more expansive in our dream.
And I will say, I've seen cities operate both ways, where some cities do, the council does say, you know what, we're gonna increase your budget, and then we're gonna leave it there. Instead of making you come back, what we're gonna do is we're gonna give you $50,000 a year, and you stay within that $50,000, and then as long as it's in your CIP master plan, you can do it. That's what some cities do. Others say, we want to know what the project is before we approve it. So again, it really comes down to, what do you want to ask the council for?
Okay, but it's worth a shot.
Yeah. Any
I was
other
just taking the crumbs.
questions? If not, Madam Chair, I would recommend let's move into number, I guess
Number
that's
7.
7A, because it's a good transition. So 7A is Parks Master Plan CIP. So last time, I know Daniel led you through a little bit of discussion on the CIP. That's something I know the Parks Committee's been working through for many years. Hasn't been updated in 2020. And last month, you decided, we talked about we're going to present it, look at it, and we're going to come back and discuss it more. Well, in between then and now, we realized, thanks to Commander Diane Williams, about the Parks Master Plan. And do please forgive us. I am 12 days from my 1-year anniversary. Daniel just hit his 6-month anniversary. So again, we're still learning, we're still getting things in. And so we didn't know the Parks Master Plan existed. We had to do some digging, and we found it. It is from 2011, okay?
There.
Which, 12 years old, has not been updated since. I know, as I put in there, Diane Williams and Deanne Trotter, were on the committee back then, and so if you have questions, I would say ask them and see what their memories can drum up. But what I want to talk about quickly is what is a master plan and how do our plans work? So I mentioned before that we have governing documents, okay? You have your city code, which is really the laws of the city. This is your limits. But then you have your comprehensive plan, which is this. I provided it in your packet. I didn't print it out for you because it's 100 pages, and I didn't really want to print that out. It's in your packet. It's all on the city website as well. This is the city's overall guiding document. So this was updated in 2020. The master plan that we currently have is from the 2010 comprehensive plan. Again, that was updated in 2015 and then in 2020. This document looks at the city as a whole. It's mostly a land use planning document. Not necessarily, I wouldn't call this a strategic plan or a master plan, but it does look at the city and it looks at where are we today, where do we want to be in 10, 15, 20, 30 years. It has different sections, obviously economic development, parks, open space, land use, and it talks about where's the community want to be. On page 60, starting on page 60 of the comprehensive plan, is you have parks. It goes in here, talks about overview, talks about some of the public input that was given, existing conditions. Breezy talks about some of the different parks out there. Talks about other private recreation opportunities in the city. Talks about the trails. And then we get into future conditions, future park planning. What are things that we would like to see? Daniel, that's page 66 of the comp plan. So I don't know what page that would be in the document. Yeah, almost there. So that gets into the future conditions, future park planning. So I'm going to stop there on the comprehensive plan because where that leads to is you kind of go, again, your comprehensive plan, that's your 30,000 foot view of the city. You then go a layer down and that's where we come to our master plans. Our master plans are generally departmental or operational specific. So in this case, we have the Parks Master Plan. So the Parks Committee said, okay, here's what the comp plan says, especially when we look at future conditions, future park planning. How are we wanting to implement those? What are the big goals? So again, you have this document that outlined parks, trails, talked about community input, and it talked about, proposed improvements, City Hall Park, the assessment, they've added some proposed improvements, add more picnic tables, construct smaller pavilion, north lot, exist walking trail loop, construct this golf course, add harmony instruments, add additional barbecue grills, construct 9-hole disc golf course, private signage as needed. A lot of these I can tell you the city's done. And these were these are our goals based off of what the overarching goals in the parks section and maybe other sections. Mr. Toft.
The comprehensive plan also states that 87% of the folks that love living here say it's attractive and natural setting, and over 60% the safe neighborhoods and streets. So we have to take that into account when we make decisions.
Oh yeah, it's the comprehensive plan as a whole. I mean, look at how does it support not
That
just
oversees.
parks.
I've read this.
Yeah.
And I haven't seen a lot of adherence to this in the last 2 years, frankly.
Yeah.
My opinion.
And I will say, this, the comprehensive plan, okay? Many cities, and I'm not trying to throw, I don't want to, I've been here for a year. Many cities treat the comprehensive plan like it is a compliance document. We by statute are required to have a comprehensive plan. Every city is. I don't like to treat comprehensive plans that way. And I do want to see more adherence to this. The council has been discussing one of their topics for potential projects for 2024 is looking at our ordinances, our zoning code. And one thing I told them is that step one of looking at your zoning code is looking at this. Because again, this was adopted in 2020, which means it was built like 2018, 2019. We've had a lot change. I don't know if you've heard of the pandemic, really changed things. And so one of my recommendations is if the council does move forward with ordinances, that we should first take a look at this plan. Not necessarily do we need to overhaul it, but let's look at it, make sure it's accurate, and then again, implement it. So I agree with you, Mr. Toft. So again, we look at the plan. Also, you can look at it, how does the parks also support the other goals outside of the parks section? Maybe housing, transportation. Are there other ways, maybe not housing, but economic development? Parks do play a role in economic development, not necessarily by bringing money, but they do, people like to live by parks. You know, parks are an attractive thing to a community, and when people are either moving to a community or looking to locate a business in a community, are looking at what kind of amenities does the community offer. So you have to look at the comprehensive plan as a whole. So that's kind of what the master plan does. Take the comprehensive plan, dissect it down into some more specific goals that you want to accomplish, generally in a 3 to 5 year window. Then from there comes the CIP. So from there is your capital improvement plan to say, okay, we've got these overarching goals, we've dissected it down to some specific tangible things we want to do over the next 3 to 5 years. Now let's take the comprehensive, the CIP and say, what years do we want to do things and how much do they cost? Because then we take the CIP and we implement it into the budget. You know, every year, you know, we adopt a CIP that says maybe it's 5, 10, 15, 20 years. But every year, generally what we would do is, okay, in the CIP, it called for X thing this year. You know, in 2024, it calls for, I'll be honest, I didn't look to see what it called for in 2024. But whatever it's called for, we'll come back and say, is that still the priority? You know, the CIP isn't necessarily binding. Again, it's a guidance document. If you want to move things, you can move things. Again, takes an action from all of you to decide why you want to move it, but you can. Yes.
This is
Sure.
a document that we have come back and visited more often as a committee, and that's why you see some strike-throughs and discussions that have happened over the years of rather than, you know, in their 2019, we're talking about ball field aggregate and all that, you know, and then we realized, no, we want to do this instead. So this has been kind of more the living document since
Yep.
I've been involved. I've done it several times, but.
And that's how it tends to be. The master plan gets created. Again, it's a 3 to 5 year document. Then you work in the capital plan until you get to a point where now the master plan is potentially either out of date because the comprehensive plan has been updated or you've completed everything in it. And then that's where I kind of think we're at right now. The master plan, in my opinion, in Daniel's opinion, is really kind of, I think, where we think the committee should actually should focus right now. Because again, it is almost 12 years old. Again, you can look at a lot of it the city's done, or the city has already decided, they've either done it, or they decided not to do it. We've amended the comprehensive plan twice. And again, we have a new board and a new council, and maybe now's the time to maybe take that step back and look at, okay, our overarching goals, our goals for our parks system in the master's plan still accurate? Are there new priorities? What have we accomplished? Again, what have we accomplished? What did we determine we weren't going to do? What are the new priorities? What are things that we haven't done that we still want to do? So that's where our kind of recommendation is. There are a couple ways to do it. There's really two main ways to do this. You either can do it internally or you can do it externally. And what I mean by that is we can do it internally, and we as staff, we can plug away at it. I will say as time allows, we have a lot of different balls we have to juggle, and we can slowly chip away at it. You know, we can start picking up sections. We will, obviously, if any level of updating, you as a committee are gonna play a big role. You know, doing some homework and coming and having discussions, really ready to dissect things, and then obviously make decisions on what stays and what goes. Option 2 is to hire a consultant to come in and do it for you. I can tell you, a consultant's probably gonna give you a lot prettier document, more in-depth document than I can. A consultant's also gonna cost you money. If you had to ask me, ballpark it, David, 50 grand.
Did this one come from a consultant?
I believe it was internal. Diane,
No, it was
that internal?
internally done.
Yeah. I will say this, internally done, very well internally done.
I will tell her.
I actually do think that this was very
Kathy?
well internally, for an internal document,
Yeah, she did a good job.
a lot of good work into it, that original plan. Again, it is informative, it sets out clear goals. You know, one of the things, obviously, again, if you hire a consultant, they're gonna spend the time on it. They'll probably have you a master plan in 3 to 5 months. And they're gonna do lots of public engagement, and there'll be a whole proposal, and they'll work through it with you. And they're specialists on this. Again, if you wanna do it internally, obviously you're not gonna spend $50,000.
How do we get the 50,000 if we wanted to have a professional do it? Will you have to wait next year?
You could do two of things.
Budget's set, so
Yeah,
we'd
you
be
could do
2
two
years
things.
out.
You could do two things. The first is ask as a part of a 2024 budget ask. The second thing is, you could make a request to the city council now to begin the process and request to use capital funds. Saved capital funds. Again, the capital fund is kind of in a way, is our project savings account. That's kind of how I look at it. It's where we put money to help fund future projects. So I do the peaks and valleys with our tax levy. You know, 1 year taxes are way up here, the next year taxes are way there. We try to keep it level. We do that again by saving a little money. It's the same kind of thing you probably do at your homes. You throw a little money away so because no one plans for their water heater to go out. So you're not like, oh darn, my water heater went out. I guess I'm putting that on the credit card. So you could do that. You can either ask for in 2024, and we can put it in the budget in 2024, or you could ask the council to use some funds. Where we are at this point in the year, maybe you can split it 50-50. The process for bringing in a consultant, what we would do is we'd issue what we call a request for proposal. We'd draft this document, we'd have you approve it, get the council's approval, we send it out. Consultants would then make proposals as to how they would approach it, what they would charge, and then you as a committee get to select a consultant. Yes, Mr.
I'm
Dunn?
against spending that kind of money to do that. We all live here. All of us here can stop at 30 or 40 houses and talk to folks about what they want to see out of the park and rec and out of the community. You know, I've probably stopped at 100 houses in the last 3 months, and there's a lot of young families, and they have a lot of ideas, and I think we could do it ourselves and not spend that 50,000, in my opinion.
Well, and partly I kind of feel like, and maybe because I've been here for such a long time too, is like I feel like we just asked the community, we've been asking the community, can we base some of the work that we're wanting to do off of the comprehensive plan that is our most, I don't know, I have mixed feelings. I feel, I see benefits of both.
And I want to be clear, I'm not necessarily telling you need to spend 50,000. Again, we can do it internally if you want to. I'm just warning that it won't necessarily be a fast process.
Right. I just also don't want to stop any work or projects or anything that we want. I want to see this develop along with things that we're wanting to accomplish. I don't want to wait a year to have a master plan and we do nothing in the meantime that can benefit our community. So.
Well, I did get a chance to look pretty much through the whole thing, and I want to commend you guys. From 2011, this is really visionary. And I think it's really, I'm very impressed, and if we could do that in 2011, I think we can do it ourselves again and not have to spend 50,000.
This could be a jumping off spot then, right?
So,
Maybe make modifications from that. We
Yeah,
go
it
piece-
seems like it's pretty still in line, not too many things have changed. and
what
we
my
use-
recommendation would be, again, I'm going to ask for a motion. If this is something you want to pursue, would be kind of what my recommendation is, what I'm hearing is it seems to be some consensus of, we don't necessarily need to hire someone, and we want to start immediately. What my recommendation would be is to direct staff to bring back a kind of a work plan for you to review of how we're going to work through it, because we don't want to just kind of hodgepodge this. We want, what
Like
are some.
map it out,
Method
step
out.
by step.
Here's the order in which we're gonna work on it, and maybe even look at, here are the meetings we're gonna work on things again, so then we know, everyone knows ahead of time. The public even knows kind of that, what you're working on and when you're working on it. And we just keep that communication flowing. What my request would be, if someone's going to make that motion, is let us bring it back in June, at your June meeting. And I say that gearing up for the next thing we're gonna talk about under my updates is I think your May meeting is gonna be full. And the council's kind of given you a tall order to make a decision in May and make some recommendations in May. And so what I'd like to do is be able for you to focus on that in May and then have us bring your work plan back in June, if that's what you want to do.
There's two other things we talked about was visiting our sites, so tying that in with this as well, visiting all the sites and looking at them, walking through them. And then maybe having a workshop of our group outside of the meeting. So we can,
Yep.
and I think we can do all of it, ties together with.
I can tell you, more than likely, if you vote to pursue this project, we're gonna be doing some workshops. Just because that's the nice thing about workshops is they're more informal. They're still public meetings, we notice them and all that. People are welcome to attend. They're a little informal and they're specific. So on your regular meeting, you can be working through your regular items, making decisions that you had discussed from your workshop. Because the other thing about workshops, again, is they're informal, no action takes place. It is pure discussion. And then we take, discussion things back that we heard from workshops, and then at your next regular meeting, we present,
Make
okay, here's what we
decisions.
heard, approve or, or correct us.
Would you want a motion then?
I would love a motion.
We
I'll
need
make a
one
motion-
to-
I'll make a motion to update the Parks, Trails, and Open Space Master Plan in-house and direct staff to start the process, coming back in June.
Beginning in June.
I'll second that.
Okay. Just giving him time to write. I don't know what all he needs.
I got it.
Okay.
I guess, Madam Chair,
Oh.
if there's any other discussion on the motion.
Yeah, is there any other discussion for this motion or?
So are we gonna talk to folks and get started on this, or are we gonna wait till June
June.
before we get started?
June.
on it?
My motion intent was June to get information back from
Okay,
him.
all right.
So in June, I will bring kind of a work plan for you to approve, and then.
Yeah, I'd like to
that'll
be able
show how
to, for
that-
May, focus
Yeah,
on
Yep.
the May
And then once
content.
approved in June, the work plan, that again will outline the process moving forward.
All right. Let's get a motion, or get a vote?
Yay?
Yay.
Aye,
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, so that's,
That's that
I'm
piece.
sure, new business, so I'm gonna go into staff updates, so, really, yeah, so what I intended for this item, really is to take the time to talk about May. So, I'll even read it off to you. What the council directed in May, and their motion was, quote, to send back the issue of the disc golf course expansion back to, or send the issue of the disc golf course expansion back to the Parks and Recreation Committee in May to review alternative uses of the property and if a disc golf course is still the best use of the land, and then also simultaneously have staff work with adjacent property owners on possible solutions to be presented to the city council in June pending recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Committee. So really, your task in May is to really look at what are the other uses. I know the council wants you to also obviously get public input as well. What is the public, members of the public think would be great other uses for that land. And ultimately, for you to make a recommendation to the city council as to what the best and highest use of that land is. Is it a use that hasn't been considered before? Is it still the disc golf course? What that doesn't really include is, again, They aren't looking for you to rehash kind of the merits of the disc golf course, the process by which it was developed, but is a disc golf course the best thing? Or is there something else that's better and that the council should consider? That's what they've asked you to do. I have conferred with multiple council members to confirm that that was accurate, and they have all said, yes, that's what we want them to do. So in the meantime, we are gonna start communication. Daniel and I have been discussing how we wanna communicate, getting that out into the public and making sure everyone's aware to come. They're welcome to come to the May meeting. We were waiting until after this meeting because we didn't want to get any confusion that is happening at May. So I guess my question for all of you is, there's anything specific we want to, we'll draft. Daniel's kind of become a right hand with communications. He's a lot of background in communication, but is there anything specific that you want to make sure we're making the public aware about? Because again, we'll be letting the public know what this was the direction of the council. You're free to come to the Parks Committee. The Parks Committee wants to hear from you on on uses that you think would fit that land.
Yeah, at the meeting, Madam Mayor suggested either a shutdown suggestion or other uses suggestion. Now, you're saying it's just other uses suggestions. I'm talking to some of the disc golf people, and I also still would prefer it should be shut down. And I think I have a pretty strong case on that count, and I would expect to be able to present that case.
And what I would say to that, again, what I have heard was, if there's a shutdown recommendation, it's because there's a better and higher use recommendation. As in, not the disc golf course, but
A BMX bike or one of those motorbike
water,
trails in there? It's nice and
hiking
hilly.
trails, it is public land, or maybe it's just nature. Maybe that's the recommendation. Recommendation is nature. Shut it down, leave it as nature. From what I've heard from the council, and I think from what their motion was, is they want a recommendation as to what the best and highest use of the land is. And if it's not the disc golf course, what is it?
So I have two things. I think we should be aware of what the topography of that land is. It's a ravine, and just anything can't be put there. So wild dreams can't happen in a ravine. So they have to know what the realistic lay of the land is, right? And what, and then also that, how much money was spent for the disc golf already in that area?
Is that a question, or you don't want to
What
put
has
that?
been spent? They should know what has
Yeah,
been spent.
okay, okay.
And that will be taxpayer dollars flushed. So
Well, you
that
have-
should be aware, what they should be aware of.
You should add back the cost of the lumber. I mean, we didn't incorporate that. We just gave that to the people who took the lumber. Paid $3,500 on top of it.
If
I'd
we-
also like to
need to know.
include the SIP plan that we have been working off of,
Okay.
to have the history and the desire to expand the disc golf course over the years, and the plans for that, that we've had mapped out, that have been out for, yeah.
And then also, if there's alternative uses, how do we address the budget costs for those possible alternative uses? Like, how much would that add to what's already been spent?
Okay.
I also think we need to include the cost of those lots that they purchased for the parking lot.
Yep.
That's part of it.
That'll in the current budget expenditures, okay.
Anybody else have anything for Administrator
I
Chancellor?
have just a question. You will have talked to the neighbors?
Yes, so we are working so what we're working on, I actually have, mailers will be going out tomorrow. So the second piece that motion is all the adjacent property owners on the expansion are receiving notification and being encouraged to come in to work with staff to discuss what are their concerns, if they have concerns about the expansion, and specifically how it affects their individual properties, and to work with us to see if there are any solutions that might alleviate their concerns. What we're gonna do is we're gonna work with them, try to come up to some agreements and then put that as a package to the city council for June. And that, what the council directed is, that's kind of again, pending the recommendation from the Parks Committee. You know, if the committee decides to move forward, that the recommendation is move forward with the disc golf course, then the council says, okay, we want to make these, you know, staff said, we've met with the residents, the adjacent property owners. We are recommending you make these changes, or take these factors into account with the completion of the disc golf course. Is it moving holes? Is it adding trees? Whatever it is that we work with the individual property owners. If the committee recommendation is there's a different use, we recommend just discontinuing the disc golf course, then that solves that problem. But that's where the council said directly, work with staff so we have a congruent recommendation pending the Parks Committee recommendation.
And just to clarify, it was just the adjacent property owners, not all of Breezy Point residents.
Correct.
That will be
There's
going
about
to.
45 property owners that are getting a letter.
All right.
There are more than 45 properties, but a lot of
Right.
owners own multiple, but there are 45 who will be getting a letter next week.
Can the group be sent the letters so we can see what's going out to people?
Yeah, I can include it just so you know, are aware of what's going on, what we communicated with them as well.
Do you recommend that we could take this previous plan and we can go find these park places and scope them out?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we always encourage you to take a look at our parks and enjoy our parks.
Now we've got the list.
Just don't do it in groups of 4.
Got it.
Well, 4 of you. If you want to take your families, but more than welcome.
4 members.
All right.
Any other? Yeah.
How are you going to communicate then to the general public? You're going to do the billboard outside?
So we're gonna use the billboard, we're gonna use our social media, other postings. We're helping. Part of it is kind of one of your job as committees is to help us do this as well. So everything we send out, we will share with you just so you know what's being sent out. And then we hope that you will also be going out and talking to your neighbors and encouraging them to attend the meeting and participate as well.
We're going to need a bigger building.
We'll make the spot. We made space at the last council meeting. We had some
May have an
60-something people
outdoor
there.
meeting.
So,
In one of our beautiful
Be
pavilions.
beautiful, yes.
hey, maybe May 11th, it's like yesterday, and it's a beautiful 75 degrees, and committee
see.
chooses to take it outside.
All right.
Anything
Any
else?
other?
Okay.
All right,
Thank you,
that was a
Madam
lot. Thank you.
We're adjourned.
Any, on number 9, there's any questions, comments from anybody else, any members, just in general, or things that we haven't discussed, or before we do adjourn?
I do have, I'm just not clear. We're supposed to come up, we're supposed to listen to the public and then see if there's other ideas for that park.
That would be a higher and better use than disc.
Right. But we can't really work together. It's kind of at that meeting that we all come together. We all have to kind of go
Yeah,
out and
we-
do our own deal and.
We
We
as
can't-
individuals can
Yeah,
interact
but
with
we-
residents.
Unless we have a set.
I will
meeting.
add this. If there's things that you've found that you think might benefit the rest of the committee members, use staff as your communication tool. Again, we always want to be careful about you all communicating with each other for open meeting law purposes. So if you have something that, hey, I got this person gave me this information, I think the rest of the committee members would benefit from knowing it, send it to me
Have
and
you
we can-
guys disperse
and we'll
it.
send it to all of you.
Sandy, let me tell you, it's not fun being sued for violation of open meeting law. Been there, done that.
So what you're saying is if somebody, I can't tell somebody that 82% of disc golfers use cannabis while they're playing disc golf, and crime in those areas go up in every state where it's recreationally legal. And Minnesota's screaming down that path right now. So you're saying I'm not going to be able to talk about that at all?
No, I want to clarify. You can talk with the public, general public, whatever you want.
Okay.
It's about with each other.
Okay.
We're talking about with, I want to clarify, that's with each other. If there's some kind of information that you want your fellow committee members to know, just send it to us, we'll forward it to the whole committee as a whole. Again, we encourage you to talk to the public about anything and everything.
If a person can't make the meeting, are we only taking live comments at the meeting, or can they email?
They can send it to us and we will read it into the record.
Okay, so an email will work,
Correct.
or a phone call?
Yep.
even. You will take, okay.
I always prefer written, so.
Yeah,
because
email or
The only reason I prefer,
letter.
either email or letter, because then I'm literally reading your words, I prefer not to try to summarize. That's how I get in
Yeah,
trouble.
sometimes when you paraphrase it,
Yes,
it's not the person's exact choice of
I
words.
would prefer just to read someone's own words.
who would they address them to?
They can send it to me.
And I want us to be really careful of just being respectful of all, painting pictures of individuals or groups of people or anything. I think we need to be very careful of that as a committee.
Everything I've said
So-
comes right off of disc golf websites, everything. Unlike the other side, which is not usually backed by facts.
I just want to make that point.
So
So,
then to be clear, we're listening the next meeting. In June,
No.
we're voting.
You're doing it all.
We're doing it all, so.
The committee, the council has requested you to make a recommendation for them to consider in June.
When is all this stuff going up on social media?
Probably starting, I don't know, Dana, we'll have to discuss that. It's soon, if not tomorrow, probably Monday.
So could you, if there's any email comments, get them into our packet the week before?
Yep.
As what you have up to
And
then,
generally,
so we can
what
at
I've done, also done in the past, a lot of times is if we do receive comments, I actually, like with the council, I actually forward them as I receive them.
Okay,
So you are getting that. So as they come in, I save them and I just hit forward and they go straight to you.
thank you. That'd be good.
Any
All
other
right.
questions for me?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll
second.
second that.
all right, vote?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye?
Aye.
All right, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
They're out.